Welcome to the Leader to Leader podcast. I'm your host, Susan Spears. Our guest today is Brian Lam. He is the owner of Collage Spa. I would say only right here in Fredericksburg, Virginia, but he's actually got a couple of locations now, so we're going to talk about that. Brian has been in Fredericksburg since 2010 when he moved here from New York. That's a big move, Brian.
Yes.
A big move down the East Coast. Began his career in the fashion industry doing marketing and events, and then he changed his career path into wellness and became a dual licensed massage therapist and esthetician. Now, that's not enough, though, for Brian. Shortly after that move to Fredericksburg, he opened up his small business, which was Skin Plus Touch Therapy Spa. And 14 years later, it morphed into what is now the Collage Spa. It has two locations that are in Fredericksburg, Virginia and Culpeper, Virginia, and a soon-to-be third location in Spotsylvania, Virginia. That will be happening in 2025. Brian and his husband have two daughters. That is so nice. I absolutely love it. Live in downtown Fredericksburg. He served on the Fredericksburg Main Street Board of Directors, and I've gotten to know him here at the Chamber because he graduated from our most recent class of Leadership Fredericksburg. Brian, welcome to Leader.
Thank you for having me. I'm super excited.
Oh, I'm so excited you're here today, and I'm really into hearing about your leadership journey and having a great conversation with you. And as I was telling you right before we started on air here, especially curious about things like from your background with fashion and all that, because that's of such an interest to me. My background was in the beauty industry, so
yes,
I think we have a lot of things in common. So tell me about that journey.
Well, I went to college at Parsons School of Design, and that was very fashion focused.
Yes.
Although I studied more marketing and design and how to communicate that. And then I ended up in fashion for a couple of years after school. And I did fashion shows, learned
nice.
all the ins and outs, but I was more on the business side of it.
Right.
But it was a great time. It was in the, early 2000s. So much was changing. Now it's a tougher time, but I think I was able to kind of see that evolution going. So I looked at a different industry, and really wellness kind of struck me, and I had a personal connection with it, knowing the mind-body connections. And then I switched my career.
Yeah.
And here I am.
And nice. Well,
15 years later. No.
Switch the career. Yeah. So how did that feel, like making a change like that?
It's hard. You're making a jump. I think back then when I told my friends, I want to be an esthetician, most people didn't know what that was.
Right.
It was just a growing industry, and a lot of people were like, why do you want to do that? It was a passion. It was something that I was interested in. It was like a little seed in my head that just kept growing and nagging at me for about 2 years before I made the jump. And then I took a risk and made that jump.
Yeah. So in making that jump, you probably had to get a lot of training and such, right?
Yeah. And actually it's funny because I was like thinking back, I actually just took a job at the front desk of a spa.
Okay.
Just so I can see the ins and outs and how it worked. And then while I was working at the desk, it was just an hourly wage. I was learning and observing and seeing how it worked.
Yeah.
And then I went to school at night. So those weren't easy days. It was just like working all day, then going to school, and just knowing like this is a new path, so starting fresh, really.
I think that's super cool. And having that experience, like saying, let me observe and see what it's like. And in a role like that, at as you described it, like a front desk role, you really do see everything that's happening.
Ground up. That's why, yeah. So I think that really helped me when I started my business, that I knew what it was like to sit in the desk. I knew what it was like to be in the room. I knew what it was like to be a manager,
Yeah. Well, let's advance forward and say the mindset that you had right there at the beginning to where you are today. What have been those big leaps and jumps, and how are you different now?
Oh, I think I'm more introspective, I think.
Okay.
I'm taking more time to be more methodical about what the next steps are. But I think taking risks is important. I think it's believing in yourself, seeing this vision, and trying to push that through a little bit.
Yeah, and that taking risks, having had you with Leadership Fredericksburg this year, I know that fits in with your personality profile.
Yes.
We take the test in the class and everything.
Yep, I'm a driver.
You're a driver, and so that's one of the questions I like to ask people is around their leadership style. Well, it's clear that you're not risk adverse,
Right,
and
right.
then I just heard you talking about being more methodical. And I remember we had a conversation, a sidebar kind of one day about how you've been thinking things through, slowing down, and maybe even communicating a little different.
Yes. Yeah. And I think that's part of the leadership is communicating. And as I was thinking about this podcast, it's like I feel I could talk about entrepreneurship because I've probably been doing that a lot longer than being a leader. But now my company has like 50 people.
It's amazing.
And you're then in a leadership position, which I must say, Leadership Fredericksburg was such a gift. A gift that I gave to myself because I've always seen it for a while and I just never had the time. I was in the trenches. I was building the company, and you sometimes get stuck in your business. And when I was able to set it up a way to such where I had a manager and I could step away, leadership was where I wanted to be. And I gave that time. And I think I talked to you about like it was nice to be the student, and not having to be, the decision maker. And so it was. I must say that experience was really great. And if people can do it, to take that experience,
that's awesome. Thank you for that. I think about you in an industry like you're in, and what we've been through as a society over the last few years. 2020 must have been. Oh my gosh, you'd have to have nerves of steel to get through it when you're in an industry that touches people,
Correct. Yeah.
Literally. And so I'm sure we're grateful that first of all you're still here, your business is thriving, you made it through that, but what fortitude, like what did you need? What kind of got you through that time?
I think it's passion.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really believing in what you're doing. And at that point, there was such a need for it, for community, for wellness, for self-care, for just a connection. And so I think that really brought me back to like why I got into wellness. But, I wouldn't say it was easy because I think it was constantly redoing a business. It was almost like we had a business and then we had to start from zero, and every 3 months something changed and you had to pivot and change. So I feel like I opened up like 3 businesses since COVID, and luckily it's steadied, and but now it's still uncharted territory, and you're just always kind of learning and observing and growing with that.
Yeah, it's that you just said that word, that pivot.
Yeah,
that was the word of, that might be the word of the century,
totally,
right?
Word of 2020. Yeah, I think yes.
Oh my gosh, yeah, that's really something, and that reminder about passion, because they say if you love what you do, you never work a day.
Yeah, and I say this too as like a tip. Like when I started my business, I was washing the floors, cleaning the bath. You need passion to drive you through all those hard times and good times, but that's what's going to get you through all those things, because you'll be doing everything, especially if it's a small business.
Yeah, it's awesome. Well, I think of entrepreneurs very much as leaders, because you're the ones that are like really the backbones of America.
Yeah, I love that there is that dream. I think it takes multitude of skill sets and a combination of that, but I think the more you hear people's stories, and it's very inspirational, and I think that is a point of leadership too. So yeah, it's not easy, but it's rewarding too.
Yeah. What would you say to somebody who is starting out in the industry, like your spa, today, like it's different now than it was 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago. But what advice would you give somebody just starting out, like first on an entrepreneur level, but also thinking in terms of being a leader?
I think, plan it as much as you can and evaluate. I think there's a little self-reflection because every entrepreneur starts with different resources, and it's finding what you have and leveraging those different types, whether it's capital or it's sweat equity, whether it's personality, just whatever you have to combine all of that into your small business. So it's kind of like take inventory of those things and be realistic on yourself, and do your best.
Do your best. I love it. I think people might not always know how much work is involved.
Yeah. It's a lot. It's just pushing like a stone uphill a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think like if you really believe in it, if you really see the vision, you're just going to cultivate the people that do believe in that too and support you. And I think that's the same as leadership. I think in leadership, you're communicating and you're kind of cultivating, you're listening, and you're bringing people together to a common goal.
Yes. So walk us into kind of what it's like there in your business, and you said you have around 50 folks now with the two different locations. How is that like structured? How do you continue to inspire and lead those groups?
Yeah, I mean it grew fast.
Yeah.
It wasn't something that I originally thought I would have. Originally, if I would think like, oh, something small, maybe a team of 5. Now there's a need for structure.
Yes.
There's more of a need for communication. I think you lead by example because now as a leader, people do look at you and. Sometimes they criticize, and that's a hard thing.
How does that feel?
Right? Yeah, it's hard.
Yeah.
Being in that hot seat, now not being one of the people, right? Like
right.
Your team, you're separated from that, and I think a lot of it is just communicating different perspectives, understanding their perspective. And I have this funny thing where I think the company is its own entity,
right?
And it has its own momentum, and I'm just there to kind of like speak for it a little bit, and that's how I see my leadership role is I'm communicating for that company, whether it's publicly or to the employees or where the team needs to go. So it's kind of like you're in this central position where you're like trying to balance all these different sides and all these different perspectives.
Yeah, and I know they say it can be lonely, but I mean it can be because you see a group go to lunch or whatever it is, and you're like, oh, I want to join in, and you do join in sometimes,
totally
and you do all that. But
now.
Yeah, the thing they were just going to complain about, you just sat down with them, on it, right?
Yeah. Now I'm like, oh, you want your fun, you don't want me around, so go have your fun.
Yeah,
and
right.
Stuff.
Do you? One of the things that I've always enjoyed throughout different jobs I've had is getting to know my colleagues in the industry from whatever it is. So back when I was, for example, with Estee Lauder, I knew all the other Estee Lauder managers and stuff around Virginia. And we could trade ideas and things, and we weren't necessarily competitive. Same thing in chamber world. I know all of my colleagues, and I've got different pockets of groups that I'm super close with. So when I face those challenges and want to talk about something professionally, I've got that person to bounce ideas off. Do you have that with your industry?
Yeah, I think it's super important to have that because you don't feel lonely.
Right.
I think I have that here locally in the community.
Oh, that's great.
As well as now Facebook makes it easier for industry people to connect.
Yeah.
But I think I've always appreciated that. I think Fredericksburg, you can find that with whether it's within the chamber. I was with Downtown Association, and I think that was really great to come in early because I think that started around 2010 too, when
Oh,
I
right,
first moved.
right. Uh-huh.
So I kind of like grew up with it, but I saw the opportunity to meet peers, support each other. But I think also set the tone and the culture there to like collaborate, I think,
Yes.
and not to have competition. And I think that is pushing that vision, because I think it's so easy to have that competition or to kind of separate, but to say, no, let's collaborate, let's do this together and have this positive feeling. So I think that's what Main Street did to kind of push in the
Great.
beginning years.
Mm-hmm.
And now that I'm growing and now that I have this time, it's like that's why I look towards leadership and the chamber to just kind of grow that pool a little bit, and to get that peer to peer and that mentorship, which is important too.
That's awesome. What's been an example maybe of one of the great partnerships you've had, or something you've enjoyed the most?
Oh, I think there's been a while. It's just easy. Just like right now, it's just businesses to businesses. I'm doing one with the sound healing with the Hepes, and it was just like, oh, one of our therapists will come. Let's make this event and
Nice.
make it a moment. It's not going to be like a money maker or break the bank, but I think it's bringing something to the community that people will enjoy.
Oh, that's
I
nice.
think that's the bigger goal, is just let's start connecting people. Let's start giving people something different and an experience for themselves. So I think that's fun. But it's like little things like that, and it's the way to approach things. I collaborate with a lot of local artists that have art
Nice.
hanging in the spa.
Yes.
And I think I sold 10 pieces of art, and I don't take a commission, but each time a piece of art sells, I get so excited for them.
Oh.
And I'm like excited. I'm like, oh, someone's interested in this painting, so it's like those simple joys, and that's really the collaboration, where it's just like you're elevating each other.
Well, and I think, didn't I see that you did one of the celebrity bartender things for Gwyneth's gift?
Yes, yeah. That I love that. Although I'm not a bartender by any means,
I know that looks a little daunting to me,
but it's funny. It's a great experience, and I think it's like you drum up people, you bring people out, and I think it was a really good time.
Yeah. Well, I saw that online. I said, that looks like fun.
Yeah.
He's having fun.
Yeah.
I love it. Well, we're talking about a lot of really positive things. Now, what on the flip side, in business and leadership, what's the kind of thing that can just make you go, oh, I'm having a bad day, or what do you try to avoid? Or
I think it's hard. Miscommunication. I think, different perspectives is hard. It's just finding that common ground. I think I try to do this in the beginning of my business, was try to find common ground with everyone, you know? But sometimes there's a miss, right? And I think that's when I reflect back and think, oh, what happened there? So I think when there's miscommunication or different perspectives, that's hard, and it's always the work of, can I see their point? Can they see mine? Am I communicating right? So I think that's hard. It's also hard to be criticized, and to feel like you're putting yourself out there, and some people don't see it, and that's okay. But it's disheartening, but then you have to know that there's a flip side, where there's people that do see that vision, and there's that support, and it's focusing on that. But you're going to get both, especially if you're in business, if you're in leadership. I think you have to have some thick skin.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I remember early on when I was the CEO here, and I have several boards that I have to report to in different ways at the chamber, and I think in the beginning I probably came across, I'm sure I did, as pretty defensive when it felt like it was a criticism, right? So there might be a board member, a committee member, with questions or bringing different things up, and I always felt like I had to respond and put out whatever the fire,
Right.
fully explain it, tell my point, like sounded defensive. And I remember one of my mentors, actually it was Mr. Joe Wilson, a downtown fixture, saying to me, kid, you don't need to explain so much, or whatever he said. I've got so many Joe-isms where he's helped me over the years. But I learned over time to do more listening.
Right.
And a lot of times it wasn't anything more than people needing to kind of process or be heard.
Yes, yes.
And
yes.
I didn't have to fix it, nor act on it, or do anything other than say, thank you for sharing your thoughts.
I think that's the hard part because I
Yeah.
think you initially start off as a doer.
Yeah.
You know, as an entrepreneur, you're a doer. And I think leadership, that's the difference, right? When you've done stuff and then people are like, oh, you're great doing it. You should be a leader, right? But there's a whole different skill set to leadership.
It is.
And listening is part of that.
Yeah, listening's a big one. And I really learned that through working with the leadership program as well early on, where we talked about generative listening,
Right.
which was being fully present, not working on your grocery list in your head.
Yep.
Looking at, oh, I like the stripes on his shirt, and I think I want to get one like that. And I saw that on sales, and then you're not listening,
Right. Yep.
but being really focused on whether it was good news or bad news being given to you, but really hearing
Being
them.
present, yeah. and really honoring and respecting their time and what they're saying, and then taking it in and processing. I've learned to start to say, like, okay, like let me take this in, my gut is to fix the problem. So sometimes I have to say, like, do you want me to just listen, or do you want me to help? And sometimes
that's
I have
good.
to say that, like, which are you looking for, and how can I best help you?
That's really good. Like saying that right at the beginning, especially if somebody's coming to you,
Right.
and asking, and so you're setting the parameters, and you're starting off on the right, playing field.
Right. So I just know what you need a little bit from me and how I can best help sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. I've also found, Brian, I don't know what you think of this, the people that are so different than me or may annoy me with their style or whatever, those are the ones I really need to listen to.
Right.
I really need to go and seek them out, and find out, what is it about me and this person that's kind of going, like not getting along. Like it's probably my fault is what I usually think, because I can adjust. I can't change them. I
Right.
can adjust my thinking or
Right.
how I
and how to
approach
approach it. Yeah.
Yeah. And then if it can't be fixed, it can't be fixed. And you just learn how to better work, within those parameters, but still in a respectful way.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And sometimes it's just timing, position in life, where people are. So I think it's a little bit about that, but it's a little bit of understanding and keeping an open, mind, and being self-reflective. I think is
Yeah.
really good.
Self-reflective. That's good. Good stuff.
Hopefully there's some good nuggets in here.
I know it. I'm just loving talking with you. It's so much fun. I think that you are really making an impact out there in our community.
I hope so.
Yeah.
It comes out of passion, but I think like after leadership, it was great to sit back, reflect, and then I think my leadership journey is just starting.
Nice.
And it's really now I'm at a point of just figuring out where I have passion for things, where I want to put my time in. Time is a really limited resource,
Yes.
right? So it's just kind of like, where can I put the time in and get the most out of it for that? And I have 2 little kids too, so sometimes I have to say no, and I think that's hard to say no for people that are constantly moving and doing. But I think having kids made me keep boundaries, and to schedule things out more a little bit.
And sort of like when you start each day, you may have that personal priority on your list, and it's real easy to
Let that
because you have
go.
control over it.
Right.
So you can let that go. Somebody else has got the kids or whatever it is, but then you haven't met that measure.
Right.
So that measure can be all different things. I like for people to, somebody who's listening to this and maybe is struggling with their balance, their balance of work and family life, all those things that we talk about.
Yeah.
I ran out of here yesterday at 5:15. I still had work to do. I knew I could finish it later because the sun was disappearing fast. And I wanted to get out to the neighborhood and walk my dogs.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And needed that. That's that time, that precious time in the day where I clear the head,
Yep.
think and have that time with the priority, the pack, the little group.
It is needed.
Yeah.
Self-care is very needed.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, it's just finding that balance a little bit. But I think
Yeah.
people have to give themselves some grace too. But
Nice.
you have to square that away. I've started to now, it's funny now I have time blocked out,
Yes.
for running, time blocked out with my husband, Will, it's like we block those times. And now,
Yes.
and I have time blocked out to meet and talk to all, my managers and make sure
that's
I
great.
check in.
Uh-huh.
So it's like, and then when you realize you're blocking these things out, you realize there isn't that much time and you have to use that resource really carefully.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
Well, that's great. Well, I hope I'll see you. Like, I think we kind of live nearby in the same neighborhood.
Yes, I think I've
over
seen you
near the
walking your dog.
university.
Yep.
So I'll have to see you out there sometime
Yeah.
and see them and all of that. They're 9 years old, both of them, which in dog years is supposed to be a little senior, but they're
Yes.
still getting around pretty well. We have fun and really enjoy it. And I like to remember too, Brian, to notice everything, the beauty of everything around me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
take every
The littlest, like a leaf.
yes,
Right?
Take inspiration from where you can. I think I'm always constantly as a marketer and entrepreneur things. I'm always looking and being inspired, looking at trends. So I think you can take inspiration from everywhere.
I
and you
agree.
should. Every different person lends to different things. So
Definitely. Well, we'll definitely be sending people your way over to the spa.
oh yes,
To have a
thank you.
wonderful experience. What's the top thing that most popular item there?
But I think we do a lot of deep tissue massages.
Yeah, yeah.
I think people need it. People probably don't come in as often as they should, so when they do, they're like, get it all out.
Oh, yeah.
So that's good. Our facials are great, but we also do nails. So it was
Nice.
It was my vision to just incorporate all of that under one roof. But then people can come in and feel very casual. They don't have to feel like it's a special treat or that it's a once in a year thing.
Oh, sure.
I wanted people to come in and feel like they're going to see their friends. They're just connecting with people and they're connecting with themselves. And it's only just, a small moment of time, like an hour that they're giving themselves. You don't have to drive to DC to get this little moment.
To have the wonderful experience.
Yeah.
Good. All right. Well, we are excited about what's to come and look forward to seeing all of that in the future. Now, as we begin to wind down this time together, can you believe it? We're already nearing the
It
end.
was super fun. It went really fast.
Yeah. But do you have a favorite motto that you can share with us?
I think it's being authentic,
Nice.
living your true self,
Mm-hmm.
and you just don't really know your impact and who you're inspiring by just doing that. So everyone can do that, and everyone can inspire other people. But be true to yourself and be, gentle with yourself too.
I realized I forgot to ask you who inspired you.
I think I get inspiration from everyone.
Yeah.
I think I think when I really look at trying to find that common ground, I really find all my clients in the past inspired me. Different employees or different team members and people that I've worked for are, inspiration. So I think I've took all the good stuff from everyone, even my family and my sisters and
Nice.
everyone. So
I like it. Well,
Yeah.
be your authentic self. Find inspiration along your pathways. And anything else that you would like to share with our listeners?
no, I think people listening to this are probably inspired by stories
Yes.
and also by this community. And I think we have a great community, a lot of great people. So it's just go out and discover them, right?
Nice. Well, thank you for that.
Thank
And
you for having me. This was a joy.
absolutely. Oh, it's been so fun. And thanks to our listeners for spending time with us today. Again, I'm Susan Spears, and our guest today was Brian Lam. He is the owner of Collage Spa. And listen, if you haven't already liked or subscribed to the Chambers Leader to Leader podcast, could you please go ahead and do so? Then you'll know when new episodes are available, and you'll help us to grow this wonderful audience. And we thank you. See you next time.